Excellent. So welcome to the TADSummit Innovator Interviews. Today, I'm talking with Lantre Barr, the founder and CEO of Blacc Spot Media. Lantre, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here and sharing this virtual experience that we're all in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been using Zoom quite a lot these days.
Yes, sir.
So we're just going to get straight down to the questions. So would you please introduce Blacc Spot Media and the services it provides, please?
Yeah, so Blacc Spot Media is a IT consulting firm focused specifically on cloud communications. We work with our customers from a consulting perspective to build and deploy solutions that solve their biggest challenge with their customers from a communication and engagement standpoint. Our services range from strategic engagements that focus only on the communications components, as well as soup to nuts, from defining the requirements, understanding the business use cases, defining the goals, to then building out all components of the application, integrations with third-party services and systems, as well as in the communications layer that plays into that. So we've been doing that for nearly 10 years. It'll be 10 years in April next year. So really excited about our long history in this industry here.
Absolutely. And congratulations on the birthday. That's a big achievement.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as a small company operating in just the ridiculously over-marketed US enterprise communications market, thousands of features, Twilio is the answer, Ring Central is the answer, how do you survive with all that noise and confusion taking place?
Yeah, so it's not easy. And we'll talk a little about COVID. But our focus has really been the cloud communication space. So for us, when customers work with us, we have the knowledge to lead and guide them on the right path.
Gotcha.
To solve their unique challenges. Vendors vary from pricing to capabilities to integrations, deployment. All of those things vary across the different vendors that you're looking to integrate. We work with a lot of great vendors in the space, and we understand how to implement and deploy for customers. So first and foremost, our niche around cloud communications is really key to finding that particular hold in the market.
Gotcha.
Leveraging our partnerships is another very key piece of this as well.
Okay.
Partnerships are very key to ensuring the success of our customers. So us having direct lines of communications with our vendors, and if things go wrong, who do we reach out to, and being able to get quick answers as soon as possible to ensure that our customers are getting everything they need. So that is something that has been really important to our overall success. Additionally, staying in our lane. We get a lot of prospects coming through, a lot of different use cases. And to be honest, every business wants to continue to grow, but, we want to continue to focus on the pieces that we know that we're good at. So we're upfront and honest with our customers when we haven't worked with a particular system or solution. We don't do anything IoT because we don't do anything hardware. Software side, we can help you with that all day, but, we stay in our lane as really kind of, key for us. And then, go ahead.
So I guess if I was to summarize it, it's being a trusted advisor in enterprise communications, because there's all this noise going on, and just being, so how do you reach your customers? You mentioned partners more on the technology side. Do you use partners in terms of go to market, or are most of your sales direct? And if it is, that's expensive. How do you reach them?
Exactly. So about 3 years ago, we realized most of our leads were coming from our partners. So we backed off on the outbound marketing perspective. We're kicking it up a little bit more now with COVID being, running rampant, and there's a lot of disinformation out there, and customers needing a little bit more education.
Yeah.
But really leveraging those partnerships have really been key. As a small business, you have to determine what you're going to focus on.
Yeah.
And so we rather focus on actually serving our clients and providing them the best needs versus, building out a marketing organization, to just find the customers. We would like to deliver more so than reach out. So those partnerships are really key to our overall success. And, it's been, really helpful. Also, the thought leadership in the space. Our customers don't look at us as just development resources. They look as you said, those trusted advisors who understand the communications industry, and who can, lead them on that path to the right choices and decisions for their business.
Great. So some examples of the partners that you use for referral?
Yeah, so Twilio is one of our biggest partners in the space. Obviously, they're the 800-pound gorilla. We we work with Vonage and others. So, their platform is pretty dynamic, from their TalkBox to the Nextmo and everything in between.
Yep.
We work with, companies like Cent, where, they don't have a fully defined platform for partners yet, but they're, working on that. And everybody else in between. So, our relationships are continuing to build. Every vendor is now trying to come up with a partner program. And so we're actively, looking at continuing to build our partnership relationships as, the industry continues to mature.
Exactly. Because I mean, Cinch has a long history. I mean, it's very strong and remains very strong in the messaging space. So if you're doing any type of, omni-channel sort of, I always sort of, keep pointing out, when we're looking at messaging, email, SMS, sort of push messaging, it's the bread and butter. Yes, okay, there's WhatsApp and all the rest, but the challenge when you're doing them is that the right channel to be communicating across? And it's still learning. I had an interview with Marlon Bowser. He runs a customer experience loyalty firm. So it's a technology platform around that space. And he was very frank in terms of just web chat, email, SMS, that's the bread and butter. That's what people know. And voice, of course. And each channel has a cadence, what people expect to be, replied to on, and is, depending on the interaction, has, has a different appropriateness. So it's not like, only use voice, because sometimes if it's just a simple notification, then, but even then, when it is a notification, sometimes that's a way to engage in a two-way conversation to make sure, especially if it's a new customer or they've done something different than they've done in the past, to say, was everything great? To recognize, as Marlon said, putting smiles on customers' faces puts dollars in the bank.
Exactly.
Cool. So what's your vision with Blacc Spot? Is it, you've got the recipe, you're just going to stay in your lane and drive forward on this? Where do you want to take the business?
Yeah, so, over the years, as the industry's matured, our core competency is written around the consulting and development for our customers.
Yeah.
But in recent years, we realized that, consulting and, going through engagements takes time.
Yeah.
So we're building a suite of products and services that we're also going to be supporting our customers with, to offer them easy ways to get to market. Over the last 10 years, we've worked and discussed a lot of different solutions with a lot of different customers. Yeah. And many times, when we look at the CPaaS space and specifically, someone has to build it, and that takes time. And, COVID really changed the game when it comes to, customers wanting to implement these solutions. And, for us, our vision is to continue to, be the domain experts in the cloud communication space and build products and services for our customers to help them get to market much quicker. Yeah. But all focused around the customer engagement, because, what is communications really is really for two individuals to communicate and solve problems, right?
Exactly.
That's what it is at the core. And so we want to allow our customers to be able to solve those problems much easier, and in some cases without even have to engage their internal workforce. So, all of those things are coming into play with the way that the communications industry is, maturing.
Exactly.
Chatbots and things like that are coming into play. So, for us, the vision is to continue on what we're doing and to continue to provide additional value-added services to our customers.
Exactly, because it is. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of there's a maturation taking place. I mean, we are still at the opening, sort of frames of the of the disruption we're going to see in telecoms. CPaaS is just the first of what's going to be many technology revolutions that are going to fundamentally change how we view and use communications. But in this phase currently with CPaaS, we've got common problems that can be productized. But even then, when you're saying product from a programmable communications perspective. So the ability to customize, to craft, to meet the specific needs of an individual customer is simply a few lines of code, maybe.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, as we look out at this market and all the marketing that's going on, where it's CPaaS, UCaaS, basically CSaaS, and a long list of features, is the market moving towards the sort of end game of it's a premium one-stop shop? How do you see the sort of US enterprise communications market evolving?
It's really interesting. The market itself is, very dynamic and interesting, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
It is definitely transforming into something that's more of a hybrid model versus, one specific, vertical from a CCaaS or CPaaS.
Yeah.
And, companies are realizing they have to go beyond the APIs. It initially started with adding value-added service to their individual APIs, and now you're seeing customers or companies and vendors rolling out full suite of services in that are complement their existing APIs, which is really key. Again, if this wasn't already on their roadmap, COVID definitely changed that.
Exactly.
Customers are needing communication, and they need an easy way to implement it, and sometimes they don't have development resources. Let's be real. There's no time when they actually have development resources.
Correct.
Because they're always busy working on something.
Exactly.
And so, companies like us come in to help them solve those challenges for that. And I would say 95%, 97% of all of our customers have development resources. We work with small to medium-sized business, but mid-market companies are really the companies we get a lot of business from, because they're so busy on growth and they need someone to implement quickly, and we come in for that. So I see the market itself, being part of that, and the vendors, supporting that, going beyond the APIs, and then, again, providing value. The challenge with CPaaS is, again, you have to develop it. But even if you have to develop it from scratch and you don't have a, say a SaaS solution that can do it for you, you still need to make it as easy as possible for customers. So, a low code, no code type of solutions are, coming into play and becoming very popular across all, technology, but even more so in the communication space, because, you are going to have those customers who aren't going to be your mid-market companies, or who are going to be your mom and pop shops, who are now able to support communications for their customers in a much more efficient way, which makes them more successful. So, the market itself is really dynamic, and, you see all vendors, really going into other sectors, really. You see, like, let's say RingCentral and Avaya, working together in a partnership to support each other. We're going to see a lot more of that in the industry as, the market continues to mature. Acquisitions are taking place left and right. So, we went through the great consolidation on the WebRTC front. Now we're starting to see some of the consolidation take place in the general cloud communication space. Whether it's Twilio acquiring IoT providers, and, Bandwidth acquiring Voxbone, and, internationally, you're going to see this. So, it's a very exciting time, because, from the customer's perspective, they're going to be able to get that value added service from one vendor and one provider. And so, while, obviously the 800-pound gorillas in the room, like a Twilio, a Infobip, or Vonage, are still going to be dominant players in the market, you're still going to be able to have those players like Plivio and Telnex, all of those still coming into play. And you have new players like SignalWire, coming up, in the space, which, makes it a really interesting market at this particular point in time.
Absolutely. I'm always, I have a landscape, and I'm constantly behind in adding on logos into that landscape. Now, on my consulting business, one of the things I do is I use Blacc Spot Media as a prime example of one of the Twilio Flex partners. And you have, of course, Flexfig. So I'm interested, if you could share some of your experiences there.
Yeah, so, again, for us, we need to adapt. One of the biggest risks to a small business is not being able to change and adapt to markets, as well as large organizations. And some large organizations don't do it well either. But that change is part of the process. And, for us, providing services to our customers, if we don't, recognize the issues that they're having, we can't solve them really for them either.
Yeah.
So, we're, great partners with Twilio, and, Twilio Flex is obviously one of their flagship products. And, we've done implementations for Flex, and, one of the biggest challenges that we saw was that companies needed to get to market really quickly, and they needed more out of the box capabilities with Flex. And so we built Flexfig to sit on top of Flex to provide customers with some out of the box capabilities. So with it, our goal is not to be a SaaS solution that sits on top of Flex only. Our goal is to get customers about 70 to 80% there, which is the pieces that they're going to need regardless, of whether we build it for them or they build it themselves. And then we customize the 20 to 30% that's remaining to get them their specific workflows, their specific needs, additional integrations they may have, homegrown systems or third-party systems like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics or whatever third-party systems that they need. So our goal with Flexfig is really to make deployment much easier, take a lot of the responsibility out of the individual developers' hands. So whether it's you hiring a consulting firm like us or your internal resources, one of the biggest challenges that any of the people that we work with from Flex perspective is that they, as the operations team, has to wait on the development team. And when they need a new feature, they have to wait on the development team to put it in their sprints and get it deployed. And depending on the priority, whether or not it gets in or not, comes into play. And so we wanted to take all of that out of the hands of the developers and focus on the UI. So a lot of the capabilities that Twilio offers in their console are things that you could do as a developer. We put a UI to that so that it's much easier for operations, to come in, add a new user. They can, create teams, set skills, do all of the things they need to do from a routing perspective to ensure that the contact center is working efficiently without having to wait.
Exactly. It's like workflows. I mean, you can define your own workflows without having to have a consultant to touch it. I mean, I remember in the good old days where, we need to find a new workflow, and it'd be like 6 months, $1 million on basically your old call center. Now it's just a GUI. It's amazing to see.
Yes.
Cool. Now, something that actually was a big theme in TADHack Global this year was mental health because of COVID-19. For a lot of people, not being in the office, not being able to socialize causes physical pain as well as mental anguish. So I know you've got several customers that you work with in the mental health industry. So I'm interested in your experiences with them in using programmable communications.
Yeah, so starting off, telehealth was definitely one of those industries that adopted WebRTC and video communications early on. I can't believe the explosive growth due to an unfortunate situation with COVID. But the sheer amount of individuals using video now is astonishing. And the mental health space is really key. COVID itself has really put everyone in a place where they had to be comfortable with themselves. A lot of people realized they maybe didn't like themselves as much, but but this I think is a key time for growth in the mental health space, because it's offering us as humans and individuals the ability to connect in a different way. And so there's reports around how much more individuals are now actually going to therapy because of COVID. So in that space, growth is astonishing, and there's different ways that companies are integrating communications, whether it's the video communications is just obvious point, but there's text communications, chat communications that are taking place within applications that allow those individuals who may not be comfortable with talking directly to someone. There's still the capability of being able to get help in a way that they feel comfortable. And so that should not be overlooked in a sense of going to a therapist is not necessarily an easy thing for people, right? And so the easiest way to communicate with that is from SMS or from chat, and that takes away the angst because you're not talking to that person directly, you're not engaging, you're not hearing their voice, you're not hearing really their tone. Obviously messaging can have tones, but it makes them more comfortable. So the industry is continuing to grow. I think that, what's been shown here with COVID is that, it's here, right? Like it's no longer a fact of, or a afterthought. It's here and it's going to stay.
Exactly.
And so all of those companies who were early adopters of video communications are definitely seeing the benefits of that. From
Correct.
the publicly traded companies, Teladoc. We have American Well now, who's publicly traded.
Yeah.
To some of the customers that we have, like Regroup Therapy, they actually merged last year with Insight. So, they're growing and continue to support, their patients. For us, we're excited about the industry. We think that it's going to continue to be more growth in the space, and better ways to engage, people who are in need.
No, I think that you made a very important point around even things as simple as messaging. We had a hack quite a few years ago that was actually built from a problem stated by a local health authority, and it was actually around teenager adolescent mental health. And it was using messaging for simple things like reminders for taking medication, reminders for certain exercises, reminders for appointments with their caseworker, just simple things like that to help keep people, just making progress, because it's just do it every day. You make it a habit and you just remind them, because people's mental health varies day to day. And if it's down, the key is not losing what you've been doing, so and that's just a simple example that I resonate very strongly with. So as you mentioned, chatbot, it's a growing area. There's still lots to learn, to say the least, on chatbots. From your experiences, do you have some like do's or don'ts?
Yeah, so astonishing enough, when you talk about chatbots, everyone immediately thinks AI. AI is great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I love AI, and it's very good in certain cases. But chatbots don't necessarily equal AI.
Yes.
You can define clear, distinct workflows that are just predefined responses that have nothing to do with AI that can get customers their responses. So a lot of times when we're talking to our customers, we're really focused on the intent. And then we focus on how do we get to the solution. Because without the intent, we can't really determine which path to take. So is AI the right path, or a scripted response is the right path? So that is kind of key, really, is defining the clear goals and the intent around it. Once we know the intent, we can build a path to get to the solution. So once we actually have the intent defined and we start working on workflows, one thing that's very important is making easily to understandable prompts. So if you're expecting a certain response and your customers are responding back something totally off the wall, that's just not giving your bot any type of real chance of figuring it out, that's a problem. That means your scripting is wrong, because where you're communicating to your customers is not getting the response that you want. So for us, unless we're building some really dynamic system, from like even a conversational bot perspective, we've done some work for BART in San Francisco and Capital Corridor, where we're using natural language processing, to understand what a customer is needing for getting schedules and things like that. So those can be kind of really complex bots. But essentially, if you're on a bot or from a messaging, like on your SMS or a web, you want to keep those prompts as simple as possible. Yes, no, upgrade, cancel, stop, things like that, where it can be easy. And obviously you want to have the most exciting bot, but at the end of the day, you're trying to solve the problem that the customer is having. And, that's the challenge. Like really overcoming the flash and glamour of, it's AI, it's a chat bot.
That's train it. Oh damn! We didn't close the training soon enough. It's like it's now getting all confused because it's opening up this other path and it's taking people down into a completely wrong intent. Yeah.
Exactly. So for us, I would say probably about 30 to 40% of customers are using AI in some capacity.
Yeah.
The other 50 to 60% are using scripted responses, because that's what matters, is really getting to that. Now, obviously, AI is going to continue to grow. Some customers want purely conversational messaging. They want the customer to ask them a question or, say their response, and then the bot handles that. AI is really good for that. You still have to train it.
Yes.
So your bot is only going to be as smart as the information that you have on your customers.
Yes.
So if you don't have a lot of information on your customers, AI is probably not the best route to go to start. You can use, scripted first to understand responses, and then build, off of that for AI.
Exactly.
So, I look at it from chatbots. It's a marathon, not necessarily a sprint.
Exactly. That's it. And it's something you do need to start, because especially, in particular age groups, or, basically sort of geeks that don't like to talk to people in real time, it's a great non-real-time communication mechanism where you can be multitasking.
Exactly.
You can be watching TV, you can be, basically in a conversation, you could be playing a game, and the text, response is just an easy way to get something done in parallel. It's like my son. He cannot play a game and not watch YouTube videos. It's like he has one device here and then he's playing on the PlayStation. It's for him to just play on the PlayStation. It's like, why do I want to focus just there? It's like Minecraft and YouTube videos. Oh dear. Anyway, enough of dealing with kids. So I guess just wrapping up, because we brought it up and it's been a theme throughout this interview, has been COVID-19. I'm just interested in your perspective around how has it impacted your business, and how do you see those changes? Do you think we'll go back to normal? Do you think it'll be sort of, I'm just interested in your view going forward. Once, the vaccine's been distributed and we're to hopefully by the end of 2021, a more normal sort of, situation where we're not all trying to socially distance, wear masks and, the rest. So just interested in your views.
So, I'll start a little bit first on the, outlook, right? Yeah. I think communications is really here to stay. I think that, some growth is going to continue in space. Some is going to trail off. I think it's going to be industry specific. Yeah. One of the biggest pieces that COVID has done is really put communications at the forefront. Yeah. I always compare cloud communications to, what the cloud used to be from data perspective back, early 2000s. And everyone was like, where's this cloud? Where is it at? How is this data being, managed and maintained? It's just data centers really just accessed through programmatically. Communications is really the same way. And I look at it kind of taking the same, steps. And, as companies became more aware of cloud communications, they continue to migrate. Right. Yep. You look at 2020 now, a vast majority of companies are in the cloud, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Exactly. These platforms continue to grow, and they're still growing in the space to show you that, hey, everyone still today is not in the cloud.
Exactly.
So when I look at cloud communications, this was the, one thing from a exposure perspective that was needed. It made everyone aware, right? Yep. In the past, it was only those companies that were maybe high tech, or, they saw their competitors using cloud communications, want to understand it. It really wasn't always a main priority for those companies, especially traditional companies. Yes. And, COVID has completely changed that and shattered that thought. And, when we talk about communications, we've seen a complete surge in the amount of prospects and customers that we've been working with because of COVID. One thing that I have noticed, which is a good thing, in some capacity, is that I feel like early on WebRTC days where, we had to educate the customer a lot. So, when we're talking to a lot of our prospects now and customers who are coming on, they're really trying to get the lay of the land. And, we talked about this early on about us being like that trusted advisor to help them along the way, because there's so many solutions. When we look at cloud is UC, CPaaS, CCaaS, and there's so many different options across
Yeah,
all three of those, and how do all of those, compare and contrast? Which ones cost what? Yeah, they have different pricing models. Every vendor has their own different pricing models,
exactly. Yes.
integrations, things of that nature, and it's really hard to understand it if
Yep.
you're just learning it for the first time. So, one of the first things we do with our customers when we engage, we check their level of knowledge around the space to understand where to start the conversation.
Gotcha.
So that's one part of the change that we've seen. It's increased sales cycles a little bit more because we have to have more conversations,
Yep.
get different stakeholders involved. But I think it's better in some ways because in the past, let's say pre-COVID, we may be working with a customer and we're working with the marketing department, and they're the only ones aware of what we're doing from a communication standpoint. And there may be other departments that's working with a whole different vendor in some cases where they have their own thing going on. And in this case, now with COVID, we're seeing a more unified approach across businesses. So they're looking at it, holistically, they look at their entire communication suite for companies to engage their customers.
Yep.
So I think overall it's why I believe that the adoption is going to continue. Obviously there's lots of reports out there around how digital transformation has been accelerated 5 to 6 years by companies, and it's true. And with this, the market is going to continue to grow. Our business is going to continue to grow. And, at this time, this is why I think the value-added services from products to get customers to market much quicker, being that strategic advisor to kind of really support them in all aspects to lead and guide them as much as possible.
No, that's a very good point, I think, because it has taken programmable communications from being something you sell to other tech companies. I mean, remember in the good old days where, like Twilio, all the use cases were Netflix and another web brand and another web brand are using. Now you see primary industries, lumber, mining are using programmable communications. And I think that's the key is, it's accelerated 5 or 6 years. The fact that, businesses, no longer are saying, well, this is a Verizon or an AT&T thing. Yeah. They're realizing now there are all these other providers that can deliver their needs, in fact, can deliver specifically to their needs rather than they have to accept this service that has all this stuff that we just ignore. This is the piece we use. It does our workflows. It makes our life easier. And we have somebody local that we know and trust that can help us rather than it's an anonymous call to a, sort of call center that keeps sending you ring back calls about how did we do? How do we do? Well, you didn't answer my question as normal, because you're dealing with real people, But again, this has been a really great interview. Of course, I love the work that you're doing. It's a great case study for so many businesses around the world to copy, because where you are in North America, working with your partners, getting leads from your partners and helping customers use programmable communications in a way that works for them, because you're listening to the customer, as you said, and delivering what they need. And also helping them understand this ridiculously confusing.
Exactly. It's getting more confusing every day.
Oh, yeah. That ain't, because it's technology led and I don't think that's going to change, unfortunately, for the next few decades. So that means, your role, it's great. It's there. You confirm, because there's all these geeks and they keep talking geek to customers, our role is secure. Excellent. Again, Lantre, this has been a great interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Alan.